Daniel, you covered this event that actually happened in your own backyard of Oak Park, Illinois.
Yeah, speaking of Oak Park, if you've listened to the show all day, I think you get a free sandwich. We've mentioned Oak Park so much.
We should do something like that, dude.
We do, yeah. No, once we have the money to afford sandwiches to give to people.
Support us on Patreon.
Yeah, if you support us on Patreon, we'll give you a sandwich in return if you give us enough on Patreon. There you go, happy. Okay, so in Oak Park, as a lot of people have seen, a lot of all over the country, students have walked out to protest the school shooting that happened in Florida. I know when we talked about it last time, I am still a person that's very cynical that anything is going to change with the gun debate until 2020 at least. But there have been a number of developments since then that have made me not still make the same choice, but I'm not as confident in that choice, which I'm happy. This is a thing that I want to be as unconfident about as possible, as I want to see change. Now, what happened was in Oak Park, there was a walkout that happened at 12, and I just happened to, because I don't live in Oak Park anymore. I live in the town next to it, but it's very close. It was easy driving distance. So I went over and covered it, and I got to see everyone walk out and do this big lap. They walked from the school to Ridgeland, I believe. They walked up Ridgeland. And if you know Oak Park, you know exactly where I'm talking about. If you don't, just Google it. If you go from Ridgeland to Lake to east, and they turn back into the school, it was a nice march, and it seemed like a lot of people that were there were there for it. One thing I did notice at the very beginning before I started filming is whenever they came out, there were a handful of students that just decided, okay, this is the perfect time to ditch school, as you'd expect in a high school. But I know from events when I went to PRF, which is the same school, that the rate of loss was 5 to 10% of the students. This case was just 6 people. See, what I'm trying to say is that the fact that it was so few people means that people really do care about this, because otherwise more people would have just taken the advantage of the situation and left. So I got to interview 2 individuals. One, you can see this on the page as well, I was asking questions just because I wanted to get a sense of how much are these guys aware of the situation, how much is that they're reacting to what's happening, how much of it is they understand what's happening and are using that to do something. And what I got away with from the interview was they really understand what's happening. They understand the issues that are happening, what they can do about it, and the importance of them being the ones to act. That was a very strong interview. Again, it was I think it's my 3rd interview I've actually done on the channel, 3rd or 4th.
Hold on. I actually right now doing a countdown in my head. You got 1, 2. I think that's number 4.
Yeah, so there you go. With
Boom.
Second most experienced on the channel, next to Kit with 100 times as many.
It's not easy.
Yeah. Oh no, exactly. But it was very. It's good to see people involved. It's good, especially for younger kids, to understand the value of this kind of work.
And passionate, too.
Yes.
I think we always hear, I even mentioned when I spoke to, maybe young people who are running for office or part of a grassroots movement, and they're making, a lot of impact to their political environment. I always ask them, we always hear corporate media say that young people don't care about the local issues, that they don't know about the stuff that's really affecting them. And see, the thing is, corporate media needs to realize that whole notion, we have access to the internet. People talk. People are not, young people are not stupid. Don't treat them, because they said the same thing to me when I was a kid.
It's such a ridiculous argument, because clearly, so these kids are too young to talk about gun control, but they're not.
No, they're getting paid by George Soros.
But they're not too young to be able to hold a gun. 3-year-olds walking around.
Now you get it.
You know what I mean? It's the most ridiculous argument.
But it was good to see those kids, stand up and stand in solidarity with each other.
Well, it's not just that. It's that what I wanted to try and get out of the interview. Watch the interview. You'll see if I did a good job of this here. Kit said the question much better than I asked it. I think I said there are some people who think kids can't. Whatever. The point that I wanted to get out of this was one thing that they mentioned twice was that they want to make sure that they're this is what I love. It's not just we don't want gun violence, we don't want gun violence, we don't want gun violence. It's with the kids, and this is true across all the walkouts that I've seen coverage of. It's we are going to walk out because there is an unsafe situation that we're being put in, and the core of that issue is political motivated corruption of various groups who are making money, the NRA being, of course, the lobby group. And our counter to that is to fight that corruption by voting.
There was also...
That's more than social media. Social media. It's more than corporate media or corporate actors or people that are professionals, we'll even say.
Yeah. There was also, I believe, a public defender in Texas that said that he would work pro bono for any student that was facing suspension from their school, because that was also a threat amongst many Texan schools for any student that walked out. And to me, that's threatening your freedom of speech, and this is something, that does affect all of us, or quite possibly will at any point. So it's at least nice to see some people defending the law, to say, like, you know what, I will work for you for free if anyone does try to pretty much violate your freedom.
It's great. Texas, buy a gun as young as you want. You can't have it. Remember that when they were doing the dildo protests like a year ago? That you're allowed to have a gun on campus, but you're not allowed to have a dildo, so that everyone just attached a dildo to their backpack.
Oh.
And they
Priorities.
were punished, but the people that had guns attached to their bags were fine. Right. It was to make that point. And so now Texas is saying, it's fine if you want to buy a gun, but we're going to punish you if you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
well, it's a way to scare people into submission.
Once again, keep people silent. So there we go.
But that remember, that worked until the internet, when they had alternate forms of communication.
Right.
So good job, guys. You're obsolete. You know what? You know how dumb this is? This is like building a wall along the Mexican border that a trebuchet from the 14th century could take out.
Yeah.
Even if Cards Against Humanity built it, which they have.
Yeah.
Which they promised they're not going to use, but they could, but they won't, but they could.
Or in Florida, what was it? Within the last week in Florida, they, in front of a bunch of the Parkland survivors, decided to vote down on a bill that would make it more difficult to...
And guess what they supported and voted for instead?
That pornography was...
See, it's back to the dildos.
Was actually
connected.
A public threat. And it was in the same session that they voted for that, but against gun control.
Go figure. It's, once again, priorities from our elected officials who are bought off by the NRA, all thanks to our good, court rulings, Supreme Court rulings, Citizens United, and the McCutcheon's decision. Because money is speech, corporations are people, and our elected officials can be bought and sold. And the NRA sure likes to weigh in on...
Corporations are people, money is speech, and you can eat dirt.
Yes.
Do you guys see that CNN event? I think Jake Tapper was hosting it, but a lot of the survivors, Parkland survivors, were confronting members of the NRA and Marco Rubio and asking some pretty hard questions. And
harder than any CNN journalist would ever dare.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not even going to give that much credit to CNN. Yes, thank you for having this event, but it was the students, that were just very direct, very clear in what they were asking, and pretty much holding these people's feet to the fire. You've gotten, X amount from the NRA. What are you actually going to do about it?
So what I mean by it is, okay, I'll ask it this way. Who would you rather have holding senators, congressmen, members of power, feet to the fire, CNN news anchors, or those kids? I'm going to say those kids.
I'd rather have those kids because they know more about the hour and what's affecting them right now than CNN ever would. Because remember,
they're the youth of the movement.
And I also
remember CNN has always done, especially even if we look past the gun control debate, but it was climate change or any other issue. We call things 50-50. It's we have this side or we have this side. So I mean, that's just how things are, But and that's how CNN just always says that. Well, this group says one thing, this group says another thing, and that's
Coke says they're the best. Pepsi says that they're the best. Who are we to decide? You choose.
I think our youth is proving every day that we are not as uninformed as some of our older members of society are claiming us to be.
Yeah.
I think we're one of the most informed generations that have been around, and we're also one of the most passionate. The passion that I see in a lot of young people It's absolutely incredible, and they're going to be the ones steering this entire movement and really connecting, across, whether it's across party lines, across just intersectionality at its finest, and it's going to evolve into something even more powerful. And I mean, we're even seeing this being reflected in Springfield as well, where we had Senate Bill 1657 that was brought back for the House to vote on. It was passed in the Senate last year, and it has many, about 20 Senate sponsors, about 35 House rep sponsors. Will Guzzardi, one of our previous guests, he is one of the House sponsors. Biss is also a sponsor of it, and it was led by Senator Don Harmon, and essentially it requires gun dealers to be licensed, and it's called the Gun Dealer Licensing Act, and it's intended to hold corrupt gun dealers accountable and curb the illegal trafficking of firearms into communities. So check it out. Yeah.
And of course, sadly, time goes by pretty fast. We're going to have to wrap up this episode of Hard Lens Media. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, listening to us, watching us on our live stream. We want to thank one of our Patreon supporters for being in our audience. Woo! Myra, shout out to you. We want to thank Cook County Commissioner Jesus Chuy Garcia for being on our show, as well as Scott Frankel for being on our show as well. All the best to them on their respective campaigns. And to all our viewers and subscribers, if you like what we do, please check out the Hard Lens Media Patreon page. Your support allows us to build more content to do this show and so many other projects that we're working on. Peace to all of you, and let's all do what we can to build a better future.
You're watching Hard Lens Media.